I don't think I've actually ever said this part on any kind of media. So it was, they asked you a series of questions, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm done with TV. And I kind of went back to it. I'm like, all right, 20 minutes. I'm going to fill this out, and I'm going to write no backspacing whatsoever. You're just going to rip this one. You're going to rip it. And whatever answers you give, you send it off, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And they asked me, like, what do you like to cook? And I said,
you can do it. He cooks like a college kid.
I said, I cook like a college kid with way too much energy and not enough skill.
Welcome to Couples Unfiltered. I'm Lionel, a retired Marine drill instructor and master sergeant, and a widower learning to navigate life after loss.
And I'm Natalie, a retired nurse, also widowed, and now together we're navigating grief, healing, midlife changes, family dynamics, and everything in between.
Join us as we have real, unfiltered conversations about love, loss, and relationships.
We'll share stories, talk to others about their journeys, and drop a few cheat codes for making relationships work.
Listen, it's raw, it's real, and it's unfiltered.
Let's get started.
Hello. I'm sure we look a little different right now.
A little bit.
Got some things on our heads.
I think that's the only thing that makes it look different.
Yeah,
okay?
Maybe. Yeah, you always sit on my left side. Mm-hmm. But we are here in San Diego, actually, not in our normal studio. Right. If you guys haven't noticed, we are at the San Diego Magazine podcast studio. Which they also...
Welcome.
Yeah. Troy and Claire Johnson from San Diego Magazine. They are from a lot of other things as well. But they have invited us to their studio because we had a little try in ours. Didn't work out too well, but it was actually...
it was good.
Not your fault.
I think this is a little bit of mea culpa. You guys were kind enough to try to construct a virtual episode.
Yeah.
And we made it through 45 minutes of an amazing conversation. And right before you closed, this guy was like, you know what, guys? Let's just do this in person.
I liked hanging out with them. I liked talking with them.
We
like
it too. We
bring
enjoyed
some
it too.
wine.
Well,
Yes.
I tell you, we would totally get along in a date night situation.
Hey, whoa.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, after I said that. Well, we've actually been accused of being swingers because we go up to people randomly a lot and just talk to them like, hey, how long have you two been married?
Right.
Or are you guys a couple? And they're looking at us like, why?
They're looking us up and down like,
Some wine.
Come to our speakeasy in our house and we'll feed you and give you some wine
and record
we'll have
you.
a chat. Like, what's going on here?
That's really, and so we're not swingers.
Yeah, no
Not
flamingos,
by any-
no pineapples, no
red lights.
no red lights.
For the
Neither am
record.
I. Claire, though.
Whoa.
Sorry.
We're not asking about
true.
that kind of business. But we will get serious. So,
Yeah.
in case you all don't know, which I'm sure if you don't live in the state, you may not know. I don't know. So San Diego Magazine is huge for us.
Yes.
Because it is kind of like the staple we go to for fun activities, local businesses, people who represent this city, this county. And, outside of the news, that's not something that we like to, kind of look at too much. We're looking for the positive stuff.
Yeah.
We're looking for the good things that are happening, and they focus on a lot of that stuff. They also throw the San Diego Del Mar Wine and Food Festival.
Hey, it's new.
Every year.
It's new.
Well, I always want to say food and wine and food. I always want to say food and wine.
I can't remember which one it is. either.
It's
Del
wine
Mar
and
wine
food.
and food.
wine and food.
Yeah.
I don't know why the F seems to flow faster, or maybe it's a...
But if you haven't, if you've gone, you see why. Because the food is there, but the wine is why we're there. That's
Wine
the
is
reason.
next
It's-
level.
yeah,
The food is-
I see a connection between this
Absolutely.
office and that.
Yes. But the food is great also because the food is like the Michelin star kind of level chefs.
Yes.
And the amazing stuff that makes San Diego, to me, in the food scene, what San Diego is.
Yeah.
I think
Coming up.
haven't we been like rated one of the best cities to eat or something like
There
that?
was, I want to say it was Travel and Leisure last year. I'll tell you, from my perspective, having covered the food scene for 16 years here in San Diego, it was not always nice. It was Jack in the Box and a couple other places, and it was, I actually have my Jack in in the Box.
Yes.
Jack in the Box.
You love Jack in the Box.
My dad raised me on Jack in the Box. It's an OG original from San Diego, but it was pretty bad. But in 2019 was when I started getting a lot of like New York Times, Elle, a bunch of other national publications started like reaching out and saying, "What's happening in San Diego? We're hearing good things." You know, so 2019 lasts like 5 years, and then obviously there's a little bit of interruption in there.
Yeah.
You know, but last 5 years is when San Diego got good.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, that's when it was just in time for us to
Exactly. Exactly.
be here. So we've been here for a little while, but
Oh,
we're not native.
You came to the gravy train then. So,
Well, I lived in NorCal for a long time.
oh, okay. So you had a
and-
real food scene.
Well, to me, it's a little different. I grew up on that. So, yeah, it's
Okay.
different. Like tacos there for me are different than tacos here for me.
Yeah, that's true. Their tacos are terrible.
Well, we don't have time to argue about that. No. But he's not native at all.
Right.
He's new to San Diego or California in general. So I've had to kind of show him Mexican food,
Okay.
and he hasn't experienced Mexican food like he has here ever.
Yeah.
So
I'm not new anymore.
Well, you're not new anymore.
I came here in 2014.
yeah, but
That's over
Actually,
10 years.
yeah.
You're official.
Yeah.
You're official. We always say 10 years is the officialness.
Okay.
That's when you get to call yourself a San Diegan.
Okay.
You know, the people who are born and raised in San Diego, they're like Yetis. You know, they don't exist. They're on a museum display at Balboa Park somewhere. You know.
I'm the CEO of San Diego Magazine, but I've only been here for 6 years, so I still caveat like I'm not a local. I'm not a native.
yeah, but you've immersed yourself.
I've immersed myself,
Yeah.
but I still feel like San Diegans are like, call me in 4 years.
I don't
Run
know.
the magazine, but okay.
You guys have done a
I don't say
tremendous
that.
job just being the pulse of San Diego, in my opinion. Just from
Thank you.
looking at the magazine and seeing everything that you all are doing, no one can question if you're a San Diegan or not. I consider myself California because my wife got rid of all of my Timberlands and got me some Birkenstocks. When I put on the Birkenstocks, I was like, okay, I live in California now.
Yeah.
So
You got to have al fresco shoes. You know, that's it.
Wow. Yeah, he had not only Timberlands, he had a lot of things. that
I'm
got
you
thrown
know,
away.
Midwest, East Coast.
Weather related.
Thrown away.
We don't need the big parkas with the fur and the suede jackets. And
Oh, I like that though. Maybe we do need some of that energy.
well,
little
I mean,
bit.
I don't not like it, but it doesn't belong here.
Yeah. Get a little warm.
I know.
Good luck finding that in the stores, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, let's do this. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's-
because we're actually here to talk about them as
Yeah.
a couple, because they are a married couple, and running this magazine together, CEO and co-owner. of-
Co-owner,
Is
chief
that what you
content
call it?
officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Troy has so much history being on Food Network and being on currently you're on Guys Grocery.
Games.
Grocery games.
Yep.
Grocery
Again, I
games.
forget that one too.
There's so many. It's like if I go off the cuff, this guy would be the guy I defer to. But the Food Network thing is got you so busy that you guys are often separated.
Yeah,
And-
we'll spend some. I'll spend some time on the road. It depends on if we have a different TV show too that I do for like Big Ten Network called Campus Eats. There's all the
Oh, yes.
best restaurants in the Big Ten school
Yes.
towns. Michigan, Ohio State. That one takes a lot longer. That one takes about 6 weeks. That's when you start getting into. Hi, you still love me? You good? You good?
A lot of traveling.
Yeah, I feel like the time apart, we started off as a long distance relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, for the first year and a half, it was like if we saw each other once a month, that was a good month. If it went longer than 6 weeks, it was too long.
Yeah.
So we tried to keep it once a month. So in so many ways, when he goes on the road to film, there's muscle memory that kicks back in, where it's nice to actually miss each other too, because we do live, work, breathe, eat. We very much share our lives in every aspect. So sometimes that distance is good, but I mean, it still is 3 days. After 3 days, it's kind of like, okay, day one, you're like, this is amazing. Got the whole bed.
Wait, amazing.
Amazing. I
Like a starfish.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not chewing gum.
There's no, I'm not picking up little gum wrappers, which if you've spent more than 6 hours with Troy, at any point you will at some point pick up a gum wrapper. And you have these things with me too, I'm sure. There's like little things that a little
I'm
bit
not
of time and
naming
space.
I'm not walking me into that trap.
Name them, Troy. But so I think for us, distance is like a set amount where it's like, that's good. Let's take 3 days. You go do your thing. I'm going to go do my thing. And then by the end of the 3 days, we inevitably are like, can't wait to come home, or I miss you or something.
That's great, because that's kind of like, we want to hear about how you guys met, but I know that there's a backstory for that, but there's also the individual life and the growing up, that we love to hear that dynamic, so that we can kind of hear that side, and then put it together.
Yeah.
And that just seems to kind of get people in the idea of how you mesh and how you were attracted to each other and what makes your relationship work.
Absolutely.
You guys have a lot of obstacles that are not normal obstacles, right? And I mean, for the average couple, it's not the normal obstacles. It's something that would tear a lot of relationships apart, for the simple fact that you are on your celeb status and you have to tolerate that. Well, you're a media personality, whatever you want to call yourself. What do you call yourself?
A writer.
A guy who's lucky to have a job.
I would personally say yes, because I jokingly say that I met you before we even met each other, and it was on the other side of the television screen.
I snuck into your living room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And constantly watching the Food Network.
Yeah.
As many of you all know, my late wife was a chef. So that was always on the television.
Yeah.
And I remember watching you. And then coming here, it was, I nerd out, I'm not going to lie. And I see you, and I'm like, wait, hold on, man.
From one nerd to another. I appreciate that. Thank
and,
you.
And then there's so many folks here. And then you allow the rest of the world, or the rest of San Diego at least, to know who these people are. Through the magazine, through talking about their food. So
I love this city.
Greatly appreciate it.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
And that's
Except when we see her, she's like just walking around with the crowd, and she's just saying hi to people like so quiet. And I'm like, is that Claire? Like, she's running this whole thing, and she's just chilling on the side, eating with everybody, and just so humble.
the quietest person in the room is usually the one with all the keys to the castle.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Is that what I got? I got keys to the castle. I got
You got
keys
keys.
to something.
What's the Jay-Z song?
I was going to say, he's about to bust out the song
Or the
right
getaway car. You got the.
I got the keys.
Yeah, that's
keys,
it.
that one? Okay.
There you go. All
Once
right.
I know
Drink
what you're
up.
talking
Get the whole
about.
song going.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Well,
So.
Claire, let's start with you. Please take your sip.
I was
I'm going
about
to
to
take
say,
a sip.
we're the only ones drinking here.
Yeah, I was. We brought glasses, but we didn't bring the glasses because I was afraid they were gonna break. But I called and I was like, "Hey, do you guys got wine glasses?"
We do.
That's right. We're a media company that's largely focused around the food and drink scene, except that, which means we should have exquisite glasses. We do not. We look like a college dormitory,
Well,
and
I
it's
guess
just.
we might have to fix that
Yeah, right.
because I'm a glass connoisseur.
Yes.
Ooh.
Okay.
So strange.
All right.
I love cocktail glasses.
All right.
I don't know why.
Well, then I apologize for that glass.
No worries at all.
It's
No worries at
okay.
all. Well, Claire, take us to the beginning. Tell us how you grew up and what's the dynamics of your upbringing.
Let me tell you how she grew up.
Maybe not the beginning, but
If you wanted to know what our relationship is all about,
he's got witnesses, so he's taking risks, right?
that's it. I could tell your story better. Let me start from the top. You weren't even there.
It was a quiet night at a hospital. No.
Exactly. So I'm born and raised in New York. I grew up in the suburbs of the city in a town called Mount Kisco. I have an older brother and a younger brother. My parents were both from the city, moved to the suburbs, and then they separated when I was 5, and my mom came out shortly after they separated and actually started a relationship with the woman that she's still with today. They got married in 2014. This woman had 3 kids from her previous marriage. So we were splitting time between my dad's house with me and my brother, and then my mom's house with my now 3 stepsisters. And then my dad remarried and had 3 kids with his second wife. So in both houses, we were one of 6. Very different
And 9
dynamics.
total if you're a counter at home.
Nine total of us. Yeah. So whenever somebody says like, how many siblings do you have? Or, tell me about your upbringing. I'm like, okay, there's a couple different iterations.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah, and how much time do you have?
I'm one of 3, 6, 9, or 12, depending on how long of a story you want. But that's sort of the framework of, from an early age, I was bouncing back and forth between houses and always surrounded by a ton of different siblings. And we grew up in a somewhat affluent area on the outskirts of New York City, and it was not normal in the early 90s to have a gay parent. So there was some adversity and I think some challenges for us growing up, where in one house we had what felt like a normal upbringing. There was my dad and my stepmom and my siblings, and we went to the church that everybody went to on Sundays, and we were a lacrosse family, and it all felt normal. And then we go to my mom's house, and they're vegetarians, and they're composting all of the food, and there was a big plot of land, and they were much more earthy than my dad and my stepmom's house. And we had rainbow flags on our mailboxes and rainbow flags on. We had a Volvo, and I believe it was a Saab.
Subaru.
Yeah. Actually, my dad drove the Subaru at the time. It's a little
Breaking the
foreshadowing. Yeah.
He's like, I'm keeping something.
I'm keeping the Subaru. Damn it. Yeah. So I think my high school was sort of a split screen. It was like, I'm from this big Irish Catholic family. I have tons of siblings. I'm an athlete. I was a good student. I had an amazing group of friends. And there was also a little bit of this element of, I'm also the daughter of a lesbian, and I was teased at school a little bit.
The only daughter of a lesbian in millennia.
That's what it felt like.
Right?
It felt like, and my stepsister and I were in the same class. We were in the same grade. So when we would be getting off the bus together and we would say, this is my stepsister, they'd be like, oh, no way. And when we eventually said, like, our moms are together, it was always like an othering. It was like, oh my God, do you guys sleep together in the same bed? And it just felt, I felt ashamed, and it took me a really long time, I think, to face that shame. And it took, and I think in some ways I'm still reckoning with it, just from a global perspective. But overall, a great childhood. My dad was my softball coach. My mom is my soulmate in many ways. My brothers and I are incredibly close. And I love all of my siblings. Step, half, we just call each other brothers and sisters. I am very, very, very lucky. And went to college in Baltimore, majored in journalism.
Wrote The Wire.
I am, in fact, the ghostwriter for The Wire. David Simon doesn't know this yet, but
I was going to say, wait, we need to talk after this because that's the best show ever created.
I know. I just like making up CVs for, I'm making up resumes.
See, he's still trying to rewrite my story. It's like, I'm like at 3 minutes right now.
But he's amazed by you. It
Julia,
looks to
can
me
you shut
like
off
he's,
this microphone over there?
but he's looking, if you can see his face, which, they can, he's like this.
Oh, he's the best. He's always, I tend to zip through these parts, where I'm like, my story's boring. Let's just get to the interesting part. And you're always encouraging me to like dig a little bit deeper and examine, that's actually a really interesting component. You're a journalist through and through, kind of being like, that's a story. Like, let's explore that,
Exactly.
Right. And my plan in college was that I was going to be a journalist. I was planning on being a war reporter. I wanted to be a photojournalist. So I majored in journalism. Graduated college. My friend from college hooked me up with her brother, who had a connection at NBC, and got me an entry-level sales job. I was a sales coordinator at NBC in the city, so it was my first job. I can still remember walking into the office in my mom's old Banana Republic cream-colored pencil skirt and a white button-up, and I'm 21 years old walking into this massive corporate behemoth, and I'm like, my life is about to start. And they're like, here's an Excel sheet, enter all of these numbers into this computer system.
While you're at it, go
journalism is on its way, Yeah, exactly. And I had always had dreams of moving over to the journalism side, and it was partly, economic reality of student loans and living in New York City, partly industry reality that the industry was changing rapidly, and partly fear, I think, at the end of the day, that I never really knew if I had what it took to be a journalist. And so I stayed with what I knew, stuck with advertising, moved all around the company, but really stayed on the digital side and learned a ton. I always say I feel like I got my MBA from NBCU. It was just like, the corporate rat race is so real. It's unbelievable, just the amount of work that happens, and in many ways, my 20s was shaped by the fact that I worked an aggressive 9 to 5. You know, I was talking to my friend about it the other day. I'm like,
or 6 to 10.
It was never, there was no such thing as clocking in or clocking out. And I was really ambitious, and I loved it. I like have no qualms about that. I loved the machinery of the business. I loved learning. And I think I knew, I was like, I'm learning a ton here. Like, pay attention. This is going to help you in some way, shape, or form. But there was always a part of me that felt like something was missing. I was like, this is not quite the life that I want for myself. There's no connection to community here. I'm just a number. And I was on a work trip in Chicago at the time. I was 29, a month away from turning 30, single, newly single, living in Brooklyn with 3 good friends in like a dilapidated apartment that was violating.
Such a powerhouse of women, though. It was like they had this little flat, and it was her who worked at, and she never tells her stories as she doesn't brag about herself. She was like in the war room when they put the Olympics online for the first time. Like, it was in Sochi, and she was there. She was part of the team that was putting it online, hoping it wasn't going to break, and it broke. And she's part of that. She was on the team that helped develop and launch Peacock. I mean, she worked on a lot of big projects. Of course, there was 1,000 people, or a lot of people, but
but I was a part of something big, and I think that satiated my need. My internal need for the journalism bug, that was why I was drawn to media in the first place, that it was like, I want to be a part of something bigger. And so though I was not on the journalism side, the experience that being at NBC afforded me was really just like an incredible frontline view to how massive media companies function. And I had incredible bosses, ones that just took me under their wings and showed me the way, gave me the opportunities, took chances on me, and I just learned so much. So I think I look back on that as like my upbringing. I'm like, I was raised at NBC in this, and my last few years in New York were so fascinating because it was a complete departure in many ways of what I was living, but in so many ways it was a return to what I always thought it was going to be like. Meaning I had been living on the Upper West Side with my boyfriend at the time of 7 years, who was also in the corporate media world. We broke up, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I'm 28, single now. I guess I'll never get married. What's my plan? And my best childhood friend was living in Brooklyn. She was an editor at Bustle Media at the time. She was like, come live with me. Like, I'm living with this girl, Lila. She's so cool. The place is, great.
Lila was the features editor at Vogue.
She's an editor at Vogue. Caitlin was an editor at Bustle, and then we had a rotating room of people that kind of were connections that we had that would come and stay for 3, 6, 9 months.
They once had a roommate that they didn't even know was a roommate until she ran to him at a bar, and she's like, "Wait a minute, aren't you living with me?" He's like, "Yeah, I moved in last month."
He was like a model that was borrowing the room for 3 months, and I remember like our roommate showing like, he's going to move into my space for the next 3 months, and it was that magical New York chaos, where it was like we were all working crazy hours and on weekends, and we were going out and partying hard, playing hard, working really hard, and spending snowy Saturday mornings sitting around a coffee table drinking coffee, talking about like our lives and dreams and laughing and throwing parties with a mixture of people. And it was kind of that like frozen in time, like that's my like New York harmony. That was what I feel like I was meant to have before I left, because there was a moment in there where I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be here forever, which was crazy for me because my dream forever. I'm gonna be in New York City. I'm gonna live that life. I'm gonna raise my kids in New York. My mom is from New York. My dad is originally from New York. I'm a 7th generation New Yorkan. I'm like New Yorker. You're gonna kill me if I hear that part. And all my siblings were living in the city. It was I'm a New Yorkan now. And I was in Chicago on a work trip. And my coworker and I were sitting at the hotel bar, and we had a little bit too much wine on the plane and had a large presentation the next morning, and we're like, we should go get some food tonight. And we got to the bar late, and they were like, we're closed down. We can maybe put together like some charcuterie, some cheese, meat, crackers. And we were like, you have to give us something. We have an 8 a.m. presentation tomorrow. So they did, and we ordered another bottle of wine and sat down and just started talking. And all of a sudden, this long, lanky arm reaches over and pulls the charcuterie board towards him and starts snacking off of it.
Wait,
And I
let's
was like-
pause. Hold on.
We're going to circle back to that.
I
Okay,
want to get
okay.
to
We're gonna-
So everybody get that picture of a long, slanky arm.
So we're gonna pause on the arm coming in.
The arm drop. Yes, there it is.
And you're going to pick up there after you tell us about how you grew up.
Yeah.
So me, a feral little 1970s child, always asphalty, you know what I mean? I always just had the asphalt all over me. Born and raised in San Diego, and this is part of why we're at San Diego Magazine, right? I was, the kid of divorced family. My mom came out of the closet too, 8 or 9. We have the exact same story. I remember us sitting when we first met, and she said, is there anything interesting about your life that, I might be, I don't know, flabbergasted by or whatever. I said, well, not really. I mean, I lived a pretty normal life, I think, just an average human being. I'm like, my mom's gay, and she was like, oh my God, mine is too. So we went through it, and I completely understand what she was going through too. So, I mean, we're suburbia in San Diego, Rancho Piasquitos specifically. When my mom came out, I mean, I was going to church. It was very, in the 1980s, this was 81, 82. I knew no one that was gay. I mean, the word on the playground was the F word. That was it. You want to insult somebody, you use the F word, and that was
Right.
it. It wasn't yet a bad thing to say. It was just like, hey, we throw that around, whatever. We don't know anybody, And so I would go to school and hear that and hear that and hear that, and then mom comes out. I'm like, okay, great. My sister moved out of the house, went to live with my dad because she didn't really like that situation. So it was a really kind of, it was a formative thing. It eventually became one of the most positive things in my life. Because I always say it's the undoing of an American bigot. I eventually wrote a book about it. You're your own bigot against your own family, growing up, which is a hard thing to do. And you don't even really understand what is happening. Nobody's talking about, gay rights really hadn't taken off. I mean, obviously there was a movement and everything else, but it hadn't been mainstreamed by any means, So it was, it was just kind of the secret in our house that I grew up with, right? But also, again, if there's a character flaw, there's character flaw in everybody. There's character flaws, and there's a blind spot on every single one of us, and somehow, that was my main one. And overcoming that was really probably one of the coolest things that ever happened to me. The biggest personal growth I can say that ever happened in my entire life. So I'm born and raised in San Diego. I can always write and read. That was a one thing. My mom, when she was really young, or when I was really young, would always say, "Ooh, big word," and that's how I got my mom's love. It was so I studied the dictionary. I'm a nerd. I studied the dictionary. I starred the ones I knew. I think I got through S. That rest of the, so if you notice, like all of my writing is usually words that start from A to S.
Never made it past. But the context there too with his mom is that she used to say it was taking him a long time to be interested in reading. It was like 4 or 5, and I couldn't get him to like read out loud, and I didn't know if he could read. And then she gets to the kitchen table, and he's sitting there, and he's reading out loud an entire book at that point. She's like, so you've known how to read this whole time, you just were like waiting, you were
holding on to my gift,
holding on to it. It was like or like processing it internally, and then you were like, now I'm ready to show you that I can do it.
I think she actually said, she's like, well, Troy, you can't read. I mean, you want to? I'm like, yeah, I can. She goes, what? Okay, well, here's the book. And I said, read out loud. She's like, what? Why did you not do that for 2 years? And I'm
Was
like,
she an educator of some kind?
no, she was just a highly intelligent. She's a highly intelligent. She's with us. Highly intelligent woman. She was the head of the spinal cord division at the Veterans Hospital in La Jolla.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
She graduated from USC, top of her class. She was like one of the top 1% of her class in the nation. She's always been a reader, and that's where I get my love of reading and writing.
Okay.
So I was going to go to school. So I went to Chico State at the Harvard of the West, and I was going to school for dentistry because my dad's a dentist, my uncle's a dentist in San Diego. I figured I'd work 4 days a week and make a couple $100,000 and then just wear Hawaiian shirts and do whatever dentists do.
That's what they do, right?
Yeah, right? And so I was a year and a half in or 2 years in, and my dad came downstairs on one break, and he said, look, don't become a dentist. I hate dentistry. You're going to hate it too. You're a sensitive kid. You're a creative kid. Why don't you do something with creativity? And I was like, oh, God. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I opened up the book the course syllabus for Chico State. And I said, look, I have zero idea what I want to do. Luckily, my grandfather was one of the deans of University of Arizona. There's actually a building named after him there on campus. And he had always analyzed education. He said, you got to get a general degree on your undergrad. Then go out into the world, and figure out what you want to do. But it doesn't really matter what you do in your undergrad. Just learn to learn. So I didn't feel pressure to go into any side of career, which you can tell by my choice. I got a poetry degree. I decided.
Sounds so crazy.
So I remember looking.
Pottery.
I know. To be clear, I always say poetry degree. It's a minor. It's a heavy, heavy minor. I spent a lot of time in the poetry halls, but. I looked at the syllabus and it said speech communications. I was terrified of speaking in public. I mean, so I figured the best thing I could probably do with the college education is tackle my worst fear. If I can overcome my worst fear, I'm probably going to do okay in life. And so seriously, not a joke. For the first 2 semesters at least, I would have a panic attack every single time I got to that podium. Every single time. Sweats, tunnel vision. I get out.
Can't take a breath.
I cannot take a breath. I would talk nonsense. I mean, I remember giving a speech where they had me improv on something, and I said, and then I just take my keys and I jump on a train, and I just nonsense.
You're like, I need to get out of here.
Right? And the teacher was like, well, that's going well until you got the keys and jumped on the train. And I'm like, yeah, that felt weird coming out of my mouth. And then one day I just kept on throwing myself at that fear. And one day I finally got up there and it was gone. It was I can still picture the moment. I remember looking out and at everybody and I'm like, oh, I got this. And I just started speaking. And so eventually I would use both of those things, speech communications degree and a poetry degree, the least employable college graduate in 15,000 years. I would use both of them in my career. Because the power of metaphor through poetry made my writing weirder, better, interestinger. I'm making up words now. And so and then
Metaphors.
the speech communication on TV. So I learned how to be on TV and be comfortable in front of people talking through that. So, anyways, and the writing part was I was always writing like 4 to 6 grades ahead of where I was. Teachers would say I got accused of plagiarism my entire life. I literally like investigations from college professors saying like, I don't believe you wrote this. I'm like,
imagine if now ChatGPT, you never get away with that.
Yeah, right. I know that.
Like
So this was
right now.
way before ChatGPT.
Yeah.
This was before Google.
This was literally before the internet. The internet came out when I was a freshman. Writing was just what I did. So I went into the poetry. I won the University Poetry Award. I represented the university on a national competition. I came home to San Diego and just tried to make it as a writer. And so I was the music editor of an alternative weekly here in San Diego, which is like the Village Voice in New York. I don't know, other cities have like that kind of alternative viewpoint. It's just really inclusive. It's really progressive. It's everything else. I was a music editor. And so this was before internet CDs, or before internet music. So I would get 300 CDs across my desk a month. Of all the brand new bands. And 80% were total crap. And the mainstream radio could only play 1%. So there's this magical 80 to 99% that were really great bands that would eventually be like those ones you kind of like, those hidden gems on Spotify, the ones that play Coachella, that sort of thing. And my job for San Diego was to listen to these over and over and over and find the best bands. I became the person that found the best bands that were coming out and let people know.
Did you get bribes?
I got a few offers, but I was alternative weekly. I wasn't like the Rolling Stones, so I think I got like we'll give you $10. And so yeah, and I'm like, that's tempting. And a burrito, and so sold. Yeah, so I sold my soul. I had a great burrito, and so I convinced a noon news studio here in San Diego to let me hang a black curtain after the noon news. So those people getting off with the perfect teeth and the perfect hair. I come in looking like the Casbah, which is an underground music joint in San Diego. Where it's like I'd hang out until 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and I'd come in just bleary-eyed. I'm like, I saw the best band that's gonna save your life. And I would have all these bands perform. We had Maroon 5's first ever television performance was on my show. TV on the radio, which is Brandy Carlisle. I'm trying to think of the bigger ones. It's like Jurassic 5, Jason Mraz. There's a lot of great bands that played on there, and it was local bands too. So I'd put the locals on the same stage. That was always my idea, was put locals on the same stage as like big national touring bands, right? To kind of put them all and kind of lift up the local and show people what's coming into town. Anyway, so that after that, I got a pregame show for the San Diego Padres for 2 years. It was a pregame show of a pregame show. You don't need that many pregame shows. Baseball does not need that much foreplay. It just does not. So they thought I was going to be the Jon Stewart of baseball. And they're like, we're going to have all these celebrities coming through. Petco Park had just gotten built. They put me up in the Western Metal Supply building, which is a beautiful anchor, old building in the left field corner, brick building. And they built me a studio, and no celebrity showed up. So I'm like, turns out we're San Diego, not LA. And so that show flopped. But we actually did two seasons. We did 2 seasons of that, and then on the 3rd season, they had the contract on my desk in my little tiny apartment, and the American economy collapsed. And so I didn't sign my contract. Had I signed that contract, they would have owed me a good sum of money. I did not. Always sign your contracts. If you know you're going to want to do it, sign it quick before the American economy collapses. Just saying. So they called and said, we're canceling the show. And my rock show got canceled as well.
Oh, man.
Internet music had come out at that point. It was starting to, the need for it wasn't there.
Right.
But we won a couple Emmys. We did pretty well. And so I took a job at a magazine, and they said, you're going to have to write about food. And I said, I do not want to write about food. I write about hip hop. I write about punk. I write about indie rock. I write about folk music. I write about art. I write about like cultural stuff. I'm like, this is just a bad laundry list put together, and it just seems like really precious people knittering about microgreens, and I'm like around a timeshare in Aspen, So I really didn't. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was. I write like I loved. Charles Bukowski, and I loved, I didn't know I would love Anthony Bourdain, or Gail Green, or a bunch of great, men and women food writers. I hadn't discovered that. Calvin Trillin, I want to say Trillin, but I don't remember his name. New Yorker writers who wrote about food. There was some fantastic stuff. So I didn't want to do it. I needed a job. I took it. And I studied food. In my little Golden Hill apartment, I read every encyclopedia on food, just like I did with like the dictionary. I read everything. I can still name the Jamaican national dish, saltfish and a key. I made thousands of flashcards. I'm not joking. There was stacks this high. And I would sit in my room on Friday nights, drink a couple beers, smoke a couple American spirits, and just study food until I became the person in the room that you asked me about any ingredient. And I'm like, where that comes from? It started out, and I just would tell the entire story of it. And so finally, they let me write about food. It won an award. I kind of took it from like the humorous perspective, the Rolling Stone kind of like writing, and it kind of worked well, and I found Bourdain. And then Food Network called. The Food Network was really quickly, and then my story's almost over. This is a 4-hour podcast, right?
It can be.
So, but real quickly, I was done with TV because TV is fickle. TV is if you get to develop a bag under your eye, or all of your 6 abs become one, and it's not the one that's ribbed. It's just this one, which I'm entering that phase now. They'll can you, writers, editors. I figured, I'll always have the English language. As long God willing, and nothing happens in my brain, I'm still gonna have this, And so, I was done with TV. I saw this little note online that said Food Network's looking for a host, and I was like, oh man, okay. So, and I don't know. Are you G-rated on your show?
No.
PG? Oh, you're not.
No.
Okay, got it. Okay.
It's a relationship.
Okay.
Podcast.
And I don't think I've actually ever said this part on any kind of media. So it was. They asked you a series of questions, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm done with TV. And I kind of went back to it. I'm like, all right, 20 minutes. I'm going to fill this out, and I'm going to write no backspacing whatsoever. You're just going to rip this one. You're going to rip it, and whatever answers you give, you send it off, and that's it. And they asked me like, what do you like to cook? And I said,
you can do it. He cooks like a college kid.
I said I cook like a college kid with way too much energy and not enough skill.
That is a very descriptive.
That's a lot of pan clanking.
You can see the poetry degree doing its magic, right?
Sure.
So, and I just went off, and I just kept on riffing, and I was having fun. I just sent it off. And somebody called me about a week later. It was a casting director, and they were like, "Look, we weren't actually supposed to put Food Network in there. We actually made a mistake, but your responses made us laugh so hard. You have to make this demo tape." And so I made this demo tape. I sent it in, and I scripted this whole thing out. I was like, I was born in the walk-in refrigerator of a 3-star Michelin restaurant in the south of France. I was breastfed by Wolfgang Puck, and I just went off, and I sat in front of a graffiti wall in North Park and just did this whole thing, and 3 weeks, 4 weeks went by, and eventually I got a call on my truck when I was driving downtown, and they're like, "Hey, this is Food Network. We'd like to offer you your own show," and I want to fly you out to New York. And I was like, holy crap,
You're like,
it worked.
Really?
I know.
Can I call this number back and
I know.
someone's going to answer from the office?
I'm like, you realize that I scripted that whole thing out. I'm not nearly as good at improv, right? I'm like, but get me out there. We'll see how it goes. So anyways, went out there. They gave me my own show. It lasted a year. They canceled it. Good call. And then it became a late night hit. So they tried to graveyard it, which is what you do with shows that you kind of want to kill, but you still want to get some use out of it. You know what I mean? That old sponge. You're like, we might be able to use that for something. Yeah.
We can scrub the floor with this.
Right, exactly. Yes. I was compost at that point in time. I could grow something else. And so they put me on at 11 p.m. And a buddy of mine called me like 2 weeks later, and he was like, "Hey, look, have you been watching your ratings?" I'm like, "No, dude, I haven't watched my ratings." I'm like, "I got drunk and went in a swimming pool and like went underwater." I was like, "My career's over. This is it." I'm like, "I'm done." And I'm done with Food Network. And he goes, "Have you watched Twitter with your show?" And I go, "No, obviously I haven't done that either." He goes, "Your ratings are number 2 on the network behind Guy Fieri right now on Fridays." I guess at 11 p.m. I found my people. My people had a couple glasses of wine.
Right.
My people had a Cheeto like somewhere on their person.
You know who those people are too? My patients who can't eat.
Right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so that was
people that can't eat will watch Food Network.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me because
Absolutely.
it's the comfort of knowing the thing they're used to being able to do. It's like an innate human thing, right?
Yep.
But they can't do it, but they still need it. They need to watch people doing it.
So they experience it
Yes.
by, that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, that's why I watch people climb rocks in Yosemite. I'm like,
Exercise.
Yeah, that's why I watch people exercise. So this is why I fell in love with her. She's funny. She's funnier than I am. But so anyways, it did well. They called me back and they said, "You know what? We'd never call anybody back. We were done with you." I said, "Well, thanks. No, thanks for calling back. Thanks for booty calling me." And they said, "We got this new show with Guy Fieri coming up, and we want to see if you want to be a judge on it. We'll try out. It's a pilot. We don't know if it's going to work or not." And that was, sure enough, that was day one with Guy Fieri, and I've been on Guy's Grocery Games with Guy for now 10 years,
Wow.
10, 11.
I think a little more than that,
Gosh, I
right?
didn't realize it was that many years.
11. So it's been...
Wasn't it 2011 that you started?
No, I started my show in 2011. The Guy's Grocery Games, I think, started in 2013 or 14.
Okay.
I
So-
remember when that first came out, and I was like, "Ooh, I want to go on that."
I know.
Go on that.
Well, it's like supermarket sweeps.
Yeah.
Meat's chopped. Meat's,
Yeah.
it is. I've cooked on it a couple times. It's one of the hardest shows you ever do in your entire life because you got to shop through all this good stuff. Like when they just give you a basket and you're like, "I don't have any choice." That's better.
Yeah.
Because then you're not overthinking things.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
don't like options.
I know. Don't give me
do well
options.
with
I
that.
will spend all day on
Yeah,
options.
me too.
It's like, "Hey, look, I need to get a new heater." Our son's heater just broke in his room. I'm like, "All right, I need a heater." I'm like, "What's this rating?" "Oh,
Yeah.
well, you know what? There's a negative rating on that one."
Yes.
"Okay, what about
Let's
this
read
one?"
all these
Oh my
comments.
god.
And then let's never buy it.
Yeah,
because
let's just go to Costco.
analysis paralysis. And we'll just be cold.
So that's it. So I mean that's the whole career. I mean that's what kind of led me up to where I was. My entire career, people always said, you're dumb. You got to go to New York. You got to go to LA. If you're going to be a writer, you're going to be on TV. Get the hell out of San Diego. What the hell are you doing? And these are smart people, way more successful than I was. And I was like, look, if everybody leaves this city, everybody had a dream. Everybody it was creative, left the city. What is the city going to be? The city's not going to be anything. It's just going to be a souvenir cup of California. People are going to come here in their khakis. They're going to get their SPF on. They're going to leave. And it's just going to be a turnstile. So what if I stayed? What if I stayed and tried to build something? And tried to tell the stories of a city. And in a way that I think is of national caliber. And let's build a media that we're proud of.
Right.
And let's build a not just a media, but a storyteller.
Well, it was like known for so long as the retirement city of California,
sure, yeah.
and of all the states. Actually, when you'd ask someone, "Where do you want to retire?" "Oh, San Diego."
Of
So you
course.
think of older population, you think of people who've been here forever, but that's not what's happening. There's the generations behind us that now can't afford to live here, but they are trying to make it their own. And I mean, the beach brings fun and entertainment, and so do Generation Z and millennials and all the people behind us. So
it is hard to work when you're staring out that window and it's sunny. I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, I'm feeling all these things behind me.
I know.
My goodness.
Yeah, I keep seeing stuff, and I want to turn my head. Yeah, it's not quite the view we have. Well, we have a nice view in our house, but not. But anyway, so what made you go to Chicago? Why were you in Chicago?
So I was filming a show in Chicago, and I just got coming out of divorce. I wasn't even divorced yet. So I was just, it's kind of funny about our relationship. When she starts deep Googling me, she's like, oh my God, this man is married.
Well, you're 14 years apart.
We're 14 years apart. So I am, at this point, I am not looking for a relationship. I am actively hoping to be gay. You know, I mean, I'm not joking. There was one man I was like,
genetic.
I was like, maybe if I think about it enough, you know what I mean? It's genetic. You know, maybe. I'm like, I was kind of over women, and they didn't want to stereotype the entire thing. I was just like, you know what? It's just too much work. I'm like, unless I find something that is just so unred flaggy, that it's just all green flags. You know, that I'm never, if I have one red flag, I'm not going to do a lifelong partnership again. You know, and I was sitting in the dumps. I was kind of at a bad spot. It's a dark spot. And I have a photographer friend. He's a 65-year-old man. He's a beautiful man. And he's a real kind of like straight shooter, kind of Johnson. You know, and he looks at me and he goes, God damn it, Johnson, you got to snap out of it. You're making me sad. You know, he goes, you got to get back in that game, son. You know, and we're in this hotel in Chicago. And he goes, there's two girls sitting at the bar right there. He goes, go up and talk to him. I go, I don't know how to hit on women. I just don't.
You're back in your speech class.
I'm panic attacking.
I got the keys in the train.
Yes, that's it. Me reaching for a charcuterie board was my keys in my train. You know, so I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Bill, leave me alone. Leave me alone. I literally almost didn't do it. You know, and so I'm like upstairs, and I'm trying to kind of see if Bill will forget. You know, and he goes, nope, come on, let's go. And I'm like, dude, these are two women having a perfectly good conversation. They do not need me walking up and interrupting that. They seem to be doing just fine on their own, you know? And I've never hit on people. It's always been, if I've ever started dating somebody, it was all because it was a natural meet. It would just, happen, whatever. You know, and because I didn't grow up in the day of Tinder or anything like that. So, or we tried to fabricate things, we just were in the same room, right? So I literally sit next to these two women, and they're the only people in this bar at this point. I think the bar is closed, you know, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea. So I just decided to get awkward as hell, you know, and that's kind of my default setting. But so I reach over, and they've got this little hole in their charcuterie plate on the board, and I just go one finger in, and I don't even look at her. I just kind of look straight ahead, and I'm like, start eating it a little bit. And she goes, excuse me. And I go, oh, I'm so sorry. I pushed it right back. I didn't look at her for like 2.5 minutes. I'm like, this is my plan. This is my brain. This little monkey in my brain is just like, it's like, no, this is going to work. I feel like this is a great one. This is suave, you know? And so 2.5 minutes pass. I do it again, you know? And she goes, all right, dude, look. If you can name everything on that plate, you can talk to us. And I'll go, that is the one damn thing I can do. I'm like, that's a speck. That's a 3-year cheddar. I think they want you to think that's mortadella, but that's probably just bologna. You know? I just kept on going.
Nerded out on the board.
I stood up all proud. I'm like, I got this. Could have asked me who was present. I was like,
It's true. It was like a visceral reaction. He was like, all mellow, reaching over for the board. And then when I said that, like, if you can name everything on this board, you can buy us a drink. It was like he jumped up and was like, I'm so stoked that I know the answers to this test. Shoved the glasses in and started reading off the names of all the food that I'm like, I don't even know what that is. That's why I asked this question. Nobody knows what's on a charcuterie board. And so then he sat down, and we sat at the bar for like way too long. Again, I had this presentation the next day, but you were so excited to just talk. It was like we explained what we were doing, what we were there for, and it seemed like the conversation flowed really easily, and there was just like a very boyish energy about him too. That was very refreshing coming from cold, wintry New York. It was like oh, this is nice, and you're
She's genuinely funnier than I am. I mean, she's highly intelligent and funny. So she grew up with brothers. You know, like when you grow up with older brothers, especially when you don't have a chance to speak, and brothers tend to be a little bit boisterous and dominating, like I'm being right now. You know, so you learn to have a personality. You learn to pick your spots. Boom, boom, boom. That's what she does. And I was like, God, she's great.
We kind of matched energies that night too,
Yeah.
because it was like there's no chance of anything happening.
Right.
So it was
There's a
just
freedom.
liberating in that. I'm like, oh, you're in San Diego. Like, I think that's in Mexico. I'm in New York, you know? And he mentioned he had a child. I'm like, great. This is definitely not going anywhere. Let's just like enjoy conversation. And then
I mean, I was 14 years old. I was definitely not looking for somebody 14 years younger than I was. Absolutely not. Nope.
I'm sure that dynamic was like not obvious because she seems, not that you don't look 14 years older than you are, but your intelligence level would have probably thrown you off with her age.
It did. It
Yeah.
did. Absolutely.
and he looked 35, you know, and honestly, like there, it's like.
What do you mean looked?
Now you look 37.
Good save. Good save.
Or even 42 would be nice, right?
Yeah, that works too. My cutoff too, because I was about to turn 30, and my cutoff was like, I just can't date anybody over 40. We have different memories of this, but I swear to God, you said that you were 42 because you asked me, you were like, how old are you even? And I was like, I'm about to be 30. And you were like, oh, I'm 42. And so in my head, I'm like, another reason. Let's just like enjoy this moment. And like,
She sure as hell wasn't looking for a divorced 42-year-old with a kid.
And you weren't looking for a 29-year-old corporate, you know, New Yorker at that point either. You wanted like a blonde surfer Californian to like make burritos with or something. I don't know. That was not a metaphor, by the way.
She's always thought I'm into blondes. I am not a blonde guy. It's funny.
I guess, I don't know. I think you are.
I think you are deep down.
In your other life.
So we hit it off, and
But wait, what did you say you were doing there?
So I was filming. I was just.
He told me he was.
I said I'm a food writer. That's how I can name those.
Yeah.
We're filming a food TV show.
And already in my head, I'm like, that's not a real job. That's like, okay, for who?
Yeah.
For what brand?
Yeah.
No, you're not a food critic.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. Come on. And then I Googled him afterwards, and I was like, oh, okay, this is like he's on a TV show. I wasn't a big Food Network watcher at the time. And we parted ways, and I didn't fully understand the geography, but I was actually on my way from Chicago to LA. So I was like, oh, I'm actually going to be in LA tomorrow. Why don't we meet for lunch?
Cutest thing. She's like, I'll be in LA. You just, we just meet real quick.
You want to meet for lunch?
You realize
3
how
hour
far
drive.
that is? It's like, I'm going to be in Connecticut. You're in New York. Let's go. Let's hang out.
Exactly.
He was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. I just flew back from, being on the road for 6 weeks.
You can see my daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I got to see my daughter. Maybe we'll talk soon. And so then I took your number. I didn't give you my number. But the next morning, I went for a run and then came back to my hotel room, and the light on the phone in my room was flashing. And it was a message from him because he had walked me back to my room. We made out in the elevator. You walked me back to my room. And then the light was flashing on the room phone the next morning, and I listened to the voice message or the answering machine message, whatever you call it, and he was like, this is Troy Johnson from Motel 8 around the corner. I remembered the room number that I dropped you off at, and I realized that you didn't give me your number, so I have no way of contacting you. And now I'm Googling Claire Smith, New York City, and I don't think this is going to work, so please give me a call back when you get this. So then I texted him, and then we started talking, and a couple days would go by, we wouldn't talk, and then I would send him an essay, like, I read this is amazing, what do you think about this?
Well, and the bad thing is, I didn't quite remember her full name. I didn't quite remember. I didn't. I'm like, it's Claire. I know that. It's Claire. And I'm like, what are you doing right now? And I was on set with my co-host. My co-host is such a nosy person. She's great in any kind of investigative situation. I go, what are you doing right now? She sent me a photo of her computer, when she was working from bed. And I showed it to her. She goes, wait. Zooms in. Claire Smith. She's like, I got all her info. And she's like, I'm going to put my friend on it right now. Actually called a friend of hers, and she's like, investigate Claire Smith, New York. Here's NBC Universal. Like within an hour, I was on screen at the time doing an interview, talking to one of the restaurateurs, and I get off, and Jenny, my co-host, was off somewhere else. Like she basically is like on downtime when I'm on air, and this vice versa. And she goes, okay, I got the full dossier. I mean, just had like everything about Claire Smith.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was great.
Well, you could have gone the route of saying, oh, my friend thinks they know you. Do you know Claire? But they don't. How do you spell your last name?
Spell your last name.
And then she would have said Smith.
Yeah, I know. Is that with a Y?
Yeah. And then
E at the end. Is it Smithy?
Yeah.
It's an Alan Smithy.
Yeah, so we bonded over like writing and like culture, and I'd send her pieces of writing that I loved, and she'd send me pieces, essays. She got her writing degree, really, right?
Journalism degree, writing specialty, it was David Foster Wallace, actually.
Yeah.
I had just read something. I don't know how I came across it, but I had just read something, and I remember sitting like in my desk in my Brooklyn apartment, and it kind of this specific essay cracked my head open. It was one of those like, God, that is so awesome. It just kind of altered
like water?
this. I think it was his graduation speech,
Yeah.
where he talked about the parable of the fish in water and not recognizing, and I wanted to share it with somebody. And I just thought of him and was like, how awesome is this? And then we started going back and forth, and you were like, oh, he's one of my favorites. Check this one out. And then I forget exactly what happened from there, but then you said, oh, isn't it your birthday coming up? What do you think about me flying out to New York and taking you out for dinner? And I was like, I'm down. Let's do it. I live with 3 other friends in a broken down apartment in Brooklyn, so I don't know if that's like cool with you, but for sure, let's do it. And if you know Troy, this is a very classic Troy story. So he's like, amazing. Let's do it. I'm so excited. Blocked off the weekend. Let's go. And 10 days before, he was like, hey, okay, so totally forgot. I'm emceeing an event at the Versace Mansion in Miami that weekend. And I'm like, that's also not real. That's not a thing that people do. Who are you? No. And he's like, but what if you met me in Miami? I'll get your own hotel room so it's not weird, and I'll take you to dinner in Miami. And again, I'm
a little corrective surgery on that story. I said, we can stay in the same room if you feel weird at all. I will get you a different room. I promise you.
That is, that's probably what actually happened, and I'm like rewriting it in my head so that it's less creepy.
Well, he is 14 years old.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And I remember sitting around that coffee table with my roommates and being like, do I go? Like, am I really going to get on a flight to Miami on a Friday
With this murderer.
with this dude from San Diego, which I think you need a passport to get to.
He smells like blondes and burritos.
Exactly. And meet him in Miami, which smells like blondeurs and burrito less. And they were like, of course you are. Go. What's the worst that could happen? I'm like, he murders me. And they're like, that's not going to happen. He looks like he's a public profile. Then at least, people will know that it happened.
Those are the people that totally murder.
I know.
By the way.
Yeah.
But they were like, worst that happens is that you fall in love. That was they were like, the worst that will happen is that you fall in love, and
Nice
then you're going to be
friends.
stuck in a tough spot. The best case is that you just have a good weekend. And I'm like, you know what? That's true. Like, maybe we'll fall in love. And so I booked a flight, and I was so nervous because I was like, I've never actually done something like that before,
Alone, too.
Alone. My best friend, my childhood best friend, lived across the street from me. She lived in Miami at the time. And I called her and was like, I'm coming down to go to dinner with this guy who's emceeing an event at the Versace Mansion. And she was like, sounds fake. I was like, I know, that's what I'm saying. So I need you on standby. I'm hoping to fulfill my dream of becoming a journalist by proving that the serial murderer is on a hunt from San Diego for women in New York City. So be on standby.
That was her red flag.
Yeah.
That was my red flag. Yeah, exactly. And then he was so normal, like conversation. He was very honest. I think that was the thing from the beginning, is that you were so honest. Like, there was no game. There was no trying to be something else. It was very much, and it was incredibly refreshing. Being 29, living in New York City, like, all it was a game. So he was just like, straight, here's who I am. This is what's happening. He was very funny. He was down for the moment, spontaneous. actually did MC an event at the Versace Mansion. I was like, that's a real thing. Oh my God. And we had so much fun. And not in like a big party scene way. Like we chilled on the beach and by the pool and went on a tour with a friend who took us to the hidden taco trucks throughout the city.
Like Haitian, took us to like the Haitian restaurants and like gas stations and whatnot.
Yeah, we did like a full day of that.
And then we extended our trip for a week, and and from there on out, it was that was the beginning of a long distance relationship.
It started there. Yeah. Then I was out to San Diego, and then you flew out to then you went to Maine, and then he came to New York, and then we just kind of started following each other around. You came out when I ran the marathon, and at some point it became like okay, if this is gonna work, we're gonna have to be together, and it felt very serious. And I think I knew almost before you did that I was like, oh, I'm gonna be with him forever. Like this is. And I'm going to move to San Diego. But in my head, I was like, maybe I'll move to LA and I'll keep my job and we'll like do weekends. And he's like, it's not going to work. That doesn't work. That's not the way it works. It's you cannot meet me for lunch in LA. You still can. That's not the way it works. And I just had a hard time like seeing my future until at some point I was like, it. If I have to lose my job, I'll find something else to do.
This is what I love about her so much too. She's like, let's do it. Let's just do it. And this is why we have San Diego Magazine. This is why we're coming out of a pandemic that a 75-year-old institution was going to go out, and she was like, let's buy it. Let's take it over. Let's do it. And I'm like, oh, geez. Oh, God. Okay. All right.
I think that says a lot to your intuition too, because along the story, you've kind of said things along that line where this doesn't feel right, or this feels like it's going to be more, or this doesn't feel like the way my life is supposed to go. And if you're very intuitive, you feel that so strongly that you just have more faith in what's coming. I just need to wait.
She totally does.
Yeah, that's great.
The lack of a need to control, I think, is one of my superpowers.
Because you had 19 siblings and you couldn't
I
control
had
any.
no control. And it was going to go one of two ways. I was going to become OCD, type A, super controlling of exactly.
That's you?
I could see that. I could see, and like in my
No offense.
head, oh, it's my dream. In my head, I have like, you can see the difference. Like my sweater's a little pulled, like you have you look like you're pulled together. I'm a little bit scrappier, and
I'm pretty scrappy before I pull it together.
We talk about her nickname,
What's the nickname?
Nat Dog.
Nat Dog.
Nat Dog.
We actually talk about that.
I love that.
I grew
Nat
up in
Dog.
North California. It was a little rough where I was at.
Oh, yeah?
Not
What
really.
part of California?
San Jose.
Oh, San Jose. Okay.
That's where my mom was born.
Oh. I might know your mom.
Military family. My grandfather was in the Air Force.
Well, I'm Troy's age, so I might know your mom.
Yeah, I know.
I can't clown you because I don't know what I'm talking about.
You can clown me all you want. You 50?
51?
Same? Okay. Well, oh, my God.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'm older than you, actually. October.
You got a few. You look very nice for your age.
I'll be 52.
Congratulations on genetics.
Like, don't crack.
Yeah. Don't crack. Well, with me,
On the inside, we do. But
for me, it's the greasy face. Like I'm starting to look my age now because we've rehabbed a media company for 3 years and had a baby this exact same week that we took this over. And that was. Don't ever do those things concurrently.
No.
Like move to a different country, break your leg, change your
I
name.
don't know.
Yeah.
Don't have them 10 years apart either.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'd have that too. Yeah,
He's a 13-year-old
and a 3. We have
and a
a
3-year-old.
Yeah, we have 6. So
Oh, that's right.
it's like
Yeah.
I've been raising kids for like 41 years by the time my last one is 18.
My God.
That is ridiculous.
What's your youngest one?
14.
14.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So still in the house.
The 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, our 22-year-old is coming. She's graduating from college.
Okay, got it.
Oh yeah, they always come back.
Yeah.
And let them stay till they're
she'll
30.
have to.
That's
Yeah.
at least I told my parents.
Well, we
when I
have a
was
cutoff of 25.
Okay.
So
Nice.
when you're 25,
Yep.
you have to get the F out.
Yeah.
But it is not like cut off, wait till you're 25, get out. It's prepping them. The plan is to always prep them to be ready to go.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary thing.
And if you prep and if you know it's coming,
But it's
sure you
also
can
like launching, It's
Yeah, yeah.
you'll never know how to survive if you don't just go do it. And we'll be your trampoline,
We
but
will
not
not
your
be your
safety
safety net.
Yeah.
I like
so they
that.
can come back and push them back out and come back and push them back out, but they have to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
Be your trampoline and not your safety net. That's a great.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of kids that we had to learn from the last one. And then from the last one, and they call you, don't do this to him, that you did this to me. Don't do this to him.
Yeah.
So it's great to have that, kids saying, hey, I feel like this messed me up, or your emotional immaturity as a parent did this to me. Everybody reads books now, and everybody's trying to have the self-help psychological healing.
And not even books. Like they're on TikTok, and they're
And
like
TikTok's
40 different ways
And
your
podcasts.
parents effed you up. I mean, and that's really like,
Oh my God, the worst thing, I think, in many ways for the postpartum. I can't speak to the male experience specifically, but I think I can, even just for us, is like seeing on social media the mass education of parenting. This is how you can do it. In many ways it's great because you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Okay, that helped. I learned a lot from that. And then in other ways you're watching it and I'm like, why does nothing feels or looks like that? That is that's not helpful. I need humans.
I feel like the best advice I've ever received, and I can say that for me, my 14-year-old has been my I don't want to say golden child because they're all very good kids, but I've realized that it was the changes in me that made him such a solid child, because I realized that when I'm wrong, it's okay, and it's actually very healthy to say it, even if you
could
have
you not
the
really
feelings.
admit that for a while?
Well, yeah, because it's like you do what
He's
I
all,
say,
He's like, I'll just
No, I came in. I think I came into the relationship at a
Yeah.
very pivotal time.
we don't have kids together.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And
Got
my
it.
kids were 13 and 7 or almost 8
6.
when you met.
No, he was 6 going on 7, somewhere in
Well,
there.
he was 7 going on 8, I think, because it was a year after
Yeah.
Greg passed. But so he got to see them in a different light than me.
Yeah.
But also, when you're raising kids, you're just doing whatever you can do because it's happening, right?
Sure.
And you
Yeah.
respond, and
Oh, yeah.
you also are taking pieces from how you grew up. And I grew up in the 80s, so it's like it was.
Yo, go outside, come back when the street light comes on.
Exactly, and you get the belt when you do something, and it was like Southern Baptist
Yeah,
upbringing from my dad. You grew up in Mississippi, and it's like pull a switch off the tree kind of situation.
Oh yeah, my best friend, he could get the belt, and I was such a little jerk. I'd be like, "Mr. Payne, get the belt."
Yeah, no, you couldn't say that kind of stuff to my dad. My dad was crazy, but it was just different. So I realized, well, I was a step parent before I was a parent,
okay.
and so my first child was my late husband's child, who was 6 months old when I met him. God. And he also had a daughter that was 6 years old. So different mothers, right? So I met them separately, and it was a different situation. I was 18, right? The mom and me did not get along very well, so
You're
I'm using
a baby
my
yourself.
immature brain, and it's all
Yeah.
about the boyfriend, and so. But at around the age of 4.5, 5, we had him full time.
Okay.
So I was raising this child, and he was teaching me so much about how to be a parent, and I had the example of the opposite of how not to be, because his mom was immature and didn't have her stuff together either. And so I learned a lot from him, learned a lot how to be a step parent, and then I became a parent, and then my first child was like my little blonde, blue-eyed, curly-haired baby who I never let leave my side in the hospital because she looked like not like me.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And so people used to go like this to her and just touch her because they didn't think she was real. She was beautiful, like this little doll.
Baby doll.
But they'd always ask me, are you the nanny? How often
you
do
the
you watch
nanny?
her? And I'd be like, So anyway,
That's
My-
a whole podcast of itself. That's insane. I cannot.
so I'm have this ambiguous family.
And how old are you? Sorry,
I'm
when you had your
50.
first.
I was 28.
28 when you had your first.
Yeah,
Got
my
it.
first
Okay.
actual biological child.
Yeah.
And so then I had that whole dynamic of the step being the actual step, and then this new baby coming in. So then my relationship was all crazy. I didn't know how to deal with that because I'm trying
so
to.
tough.
Yeah, it's like hard to kind of convince the OG child that they are just as loved and cared
That
for.
they matter. Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
There's
And so
Yeah.
just
you
less
learn.
needy right now. You're independent. We're going through that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and it's hard
So
because
hard.
they're a teenager because he was 12.
Yeah.
So he's turning into a teenager. They don't care about you. They only care about
Right.
themselves, right? And
course.
that's natural. So all they care and think about is my life's going to change. They only care about this baby. The baby's going to get everything. I'm not going to get anything. You know, and so you learn as you grow with parenting that, first of all, each child is very different. You can't compare them. You have to treat them in the moment for what they're going through and kind of be that, pretend almost like you're the uncle or the aunt. How would you respond when those nephews and nieces come to you and they ask you questions because they know you'll not keep a secret necessarily, but you'll give them the honest truth.
I would say the real.
Yeah, there has to be like this happy medium where you're not your kid's friend, but you listen to them with all of the respect that their friends would give them, and that you know, they feel they deserve. And if
you're not just supposed to look at your 12-year-old with total fear.
No, it's scary. Okay. You're just not supposed to let them see you.
Okay, gotcha, because
Exactly.
it's terrifying.
Now, my raising of my boys was similar to that, because I was 20 when we had our first child. So I'm a kid too.
Yeah.
And I'm playing with them. I'm trying to develop the men that they're supposed to be with whatever it is that I know. And I'm bringing my Marine Corps background. I'm bringing back growing up in Ohio from my parents and how I was raised. So there was a lot of different dynamics there, but we had such a friendship because I'm like, no, I'm like your big brother.
Yeah.
I'm your dad, but I'm like your big brother.
I'm the same age as you. At 18, you still feel like the same age.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe your dad, but I mean, we're kids.
We're wrestling around. We're playing video games together.
Yeah.
But I look at your kids and I just think, you guys did such an amazing job, because they are like the most, they're 26 and 27 now, but they're like the most amazing humans, you know? And, you know, we all want our kids to be successful and make money and be able to be independent and all these things. But my priority is raising a really good human. And however that turns out for them in their life is not something I should be so concerned about, because believe me, once they get out, that's their life and you have no control anymore. Yeah. You could just be their consultant, right?
You're consultant.
Yeah, where we always say, like, you're their managers, right?
Up until the age of 18.
18-ish. And then you become, you know, the kind of, you're still the manager if they're living in your house.
The pro bono consultant.
Yes.
The pro bono.
Yeah.
But you're paying.
Yeah. But, you know, there's so many things. I'm not saying this is the perfect way, but I've learned, and like I said, through my last child, his reflection of my parenting is that I am treating him with respect, but not letting him think that, you know, he can disrespect or anything. Like, I'm still your parent, and this is why you need to behave this way, or this is why, you know, if I have an ego issue, I'll say, oh, you know what, I let my ego get the best of me, and this is what ego means, and this is the scenario, and this isn't a good look. You know, it's kind of like break it all down to where they're like, okay, got it, bye. You know,
Over-educate.
Yeah,
in the hopes that one or two of those stick.
Yeah,
You know?
but you also want them to be able to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, don't learn about sex from your friends. Please, whatever you hear, just come back and ask me. Like, I'll talk to you about it. I really will, and we can Google it together.
I told her, I'm like, look, if nobody talks to Elia, my daughter, about sex, I will. And she's like, oh Jesus, no, please, oh God, I'll do it. Oh God.
But you know, you kind of want to know what they know, and that's how you play. You know, what do you think it is?
Yeah.
And then when they describe stuff to you, and they're so way off, it's like, oh my God, thank God I asked.
Okay, yep.
Bit of a course correction on that.
Let me get out my world book.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely be Googling it. But so I mean, I think the fact that you guys are so many years apart, you had a whole relationship, marriage, child situation, so you've had a little bit of experience with the dedication and the loyalty and all the things that it takes. And then you're in a place in your life where you're young, but yet you've had all the experiences that people dream about.
10
the
years
college
in
experience.
New York, and NBC, Comcast.
That sounds fake.
Yeah. Right, I know.
Funny, I guess so.
It does, because that's like a
thought
movie.
About that.
Nobody gets that.
It's
opportunity.
sitcom. It's like Sex in the City or something.
A camel got stuck in the elevator on her way to work because she's in the same building as 30 Rock. Right, it was on its way to SNL.
Wow,
it's a bit of a
exaggeration.
Well, no, I worked in Rockefeller Center, and I was bringing my college roommate's mom on a tour because I had access to all of 30 Rock. So I was bringing her on a tour, and I'm like, who knows if what's going to be happening, and a security guard may stop us at some point, but let's go. We can go see. Like, I can walk into the studio. if we wanted to. And we did the elevator door open, and there was a camel stuck in the doorway, and David Grohl just walking towards us. And we
David,
all
that
stood
was the
there.
same story?
Yeah. And then the elevator doors just shut, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good time for us to walk around.
But that's to somebody else, you know, in Ohio or sorry, maybe Utah or someplace.
No, in Ohio too.
It's like what? You know, that's what they think of when they think of
Right,
New York.
right.
Like
Yeah.
they think of surfing and blondes in California.
Yeah,
or I had an
exactly.
experience where I had a not a seal, but a
Stilettos, cigarettes, and Dave Grohl in New York.
Amen.
sea lion. That's the other one. On the couch inside of the recreation room that the school we lived in, just sitting chilling on the couch. Like
Yeah.
I lost my mom. What's up? Call somebody. Get me help. You know? and that's California. You
Right.
know? But the fact that you guys came together and had such different lives, but went through the trial and error and kind of practice of the lives you had, long distance, and now with this magazine together and your lives that you have, it's like you already know how to do this.
Yeah.
Because you're working together, you're kind of stressing out together, you're leaving, you're alone, and you're raising a child together. So you had the opportunity to kind of have all of this stuff happen before it happened. And that's the intuitive stuff with you knowing that this feels right. Something's going to happen. I'm going to be with this guy. I'm going to be here. I'm going to live here. I'm going to be in this situation. Because you felt, I believe you felt the practice was practice.
And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me and him, it should have been hard. It should have been hard. It was a cross-country relationship. It was a divorce that was happening. It was a child. It was a leaving my job. It was a
The
starting
age
over with no
difference
friends. It was the age difference. It was the
cultural
totally
references,
different.
the movie lines are going to be different.
Well, I was going to ask about that.
It should have been hard, but it was so easy. You know, it was easy. There were definitely hard moments of like, am I going to pull this trigger? Or like, you know, sometimes the age difference did show my maturity, you know, my emotional maturity. I remember one very specific argument where he was like, we're not going to fight about this. Like, I understand you're upset. This is a 13-hour fight, though. This is not a 48-hour fight. And I remember it was something about my birthday. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was like mad about
I'm
something.
terrible at like big events, to be quite honest with you. I get paralysis. I start thinking about it. I have all these ideas, and I'm like, then I get a decision analysis paralysis, and I'm like, and then I don't do anything. I'm like, here's a card. I love you.
But it was something else that was like more tied. It was like while we were still long distance, and you had Ellie that weekend, and
Did you
I
steal
was
my
having-
wine?
Dude,
Hey, that was the smoothest move I've seen in a long time. I was like, "Ooh, look at that slick."
I do this all the time at home, and he won't even notice. He'll just be like, "Oh man, I'm drinking too much," and I'm like, "Yeah."
There's still some in that bottle if you want to
Oh, that's beautiful.
You really got to cut back. Drink.
He just drinks fast.
There you go.
It was definitely different. I mean, now our oxygen is fully commingled, right? I mean, it is where we live on top of each other all the time. You know, I mean, and I mean that in the great way. You know, I mean, but I mean, it's actually not tough because she and I communicate so well. I mean, we're really, I just genuinely love her and like as a great friend. So she's my person,
Yeah.
you know, and you, when you find your person, it's easy, you know. I mean, sure, you're gonna have your like, are you mad at me? For some reason, she's like, I'm PMSing. Shut up, you know.
It's miraculous. Every 4 weeks, he's like, I just feel like the last 2 days you've been a little irritated with
And
me.
he
And
still
I'm like,
hasn't learned.
Gosh, I wonder why. I'm gonna let you suffer in this right now. I'm gonna just let you suffer in this. Yeah, no, I'm not annoyed. I don't feel like being around anyone right now. It's like totally understand. I feel that way too sometimes.
Oh no, he knows. We've been together as long as you guys have. I mean, you know, probably as long as you
Just
guys
a couple of, I think a couple of months.
How long have you guys been together?
We met in May of 2017. I would say at some point in like that fall we were officially together. So
We got
fall
married in late
2017.
2019, and then the pandemic happened 3 months after our marriage. Yeah.
So that's so weird. So we got married. Wait, 19?
We got married.
No, they got married
2019.
November 19.
November
We got
19,
married.
November,
and then 3
okay.
months later.
We got married Valentine's Day 2020,
Oh,
and then COVID. So we were all locked down together.
it was already starting, wasn't it? Or was it?
Well,
no?
we
It was
yes,
starting,
because
But nothing
No
nothing
lockdown
officially
or-
There was
shut
no
down
lockdown.
until March. So
We
like
went
March
to
16th.
Disneyland, and the next
Yeah.
day it shut down because we were supposed to go to Europe, but they wouldn't let us travel. So we were like, okay, let's go to Laguna Beach, you know. So
Yeah.
we left, and then the next day we just went to Disneyland, and then next day they shut it down. So.
Yeah,
They were like walking people out like, okay.
time to go.
Yeah.
The world's about ready to get real weird.
And here we are again.
Thanos is coming. So
Thanos is on his way. He's got all the rings.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Nerd
nerding
reference.
out,
So.
yeah. He knows what you're talking about. I'm like,
I was
I'm
like,
looking at you
Elizabeth
like,
Theranos?
so anyway.
was that this time?
She did the blood test, right?
Is that something to do with the pandemic?
Does that actually cause any issues with you guys, the age difference and the references?
You know, not really. I mean, no.
I'm trying to think if I'm being like brutal, if we're being like brutally honest. In age, I think the only time that it's ever come up is with Jasper, and it's less so the age difference than more so the fact that we took on a business at the same time as having a baby. That I'm like, if this were our first and 10 years ago, this would feel different. You know, if you were 40 and I was 25, I mean, I'm speaking in like magic land, but I'm like, but I think about that because I had him at 34, which is not old by any means, but my mom had 3 by the time she was 30. So my image, my memories of childhood are with a very active mom and dad who are, 29 and 30 with 3 kids. And we've got a tiny house and a backyard, and they both were starting their businesses. So we didn't have a lot of money, but it was like, everybody had a lot of energy. And I was 34 when he was born. You were 48. We had taken over the business, and my whole family is back east. So I'm like, we didn't have a ton of support, right? Exactly, and we were exhausted. So yes, the age difference, I think, when it comes to having a baby at 34 or 48 is very different than having one at 30 or even 40.
I was 28 and 38.
Yeah. It's a difference, right?
It is
is
very different.
It's not that
I would
it's
say
impossible.
you have a perspective of what it was like
Yes.
being young, and
But
I mean,
also the perspective of the parent you were.
yeah.
And the parent you are when you're a little older. And I don't know how any of us have babies until we're in our 30s.
No, we shouldn't.
Because the
Agreed.
parenting we did and the parenting that our parents did messed us up.
Your prefrontal cortex is not even finished.
Yeah.
At that
And
age.
men are not ready to even be married till they're like 35.
I
Well,
know.
I say 37. I was
45.
not ready. I was not a man until I turned 37.
Yeah.
And I can look back at all the mistakes that I made and
Yeah.
all the dumb stuff that I did. And I'm like, why?
And that's
Wow.
such an
I
awesome
know.
thing to say, though, to know, to be like, I grew up at 37. I feel like when you put it in that perspective for men and women, too, when you're like, I matured, I turned the corner at 37, it's like you're not slowing down at that point. Now your
No.
life's about to start.
Exactly.
Now you're
I
now
turned
you're
the corner at
perspective is
50 and a
just
half. I'm here now.
But I love my 50s. I'm not. I was more afraid and worried, and not worried, but like not happy about turning 30.
Oh, I can.
I turned
still
30
remember that
twice.
too. I know.
I
Really?
thought I was turning 30 and I was turning 31, and when I turned 30 I was okay, but when I turned 31 I thought I was turning 30, and then I realized I was like, oh my God, I'm not 30.
I'm into.
over the threshold.
I know. Now I'm into my 30s.
I lost it for a little minute there, but that's probably just looking back at how many more years I had left to raise.
There's a
children.
clog in the fountain of youth.
Here forever.
I'm still fertile. God damn it.
Stay away from me.
Yeah, like in terms of, I mean, we have different parenting styles. Like I'm very much a laissez-faire kind of parent. I mean, I'm there. I'm with him. I love him. We're there, but I'm like, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. And that's I was.
I'm like, is that an age difference thing, though?
Or a
I
man.
don't think so. Or a California versus New York thing.
Well, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge
Super
part of
laid
it,
back.
Yeah, I can
too.
see that.
I was like that with Elliot too. I was like, yeah, I mean, sure, she got a little bit of pneumonia, but she's all right.
But I do have to say that that's a healthy also, in moderation. That's also a healthy way to. Can I speak? Healthy way to.
I struggle
parent.
all the time.
It's a healthy way to parent
Yeah.
because, if I had to learn the hard way, your children react the way that you kind of show them they're supposed to. And I mean, like, as a nurse, if someone's got shot and they're laying on the ground bleeding, if I'm like, oh my God, you're bleeding
gonna
everywhere,
die.
you know, you're gonna, oh my God, we need to get help. Like, if I start panicking, then they're gonna panic, right? So I'm just like, hey,
Can you
I'm
imagine
gonna
if
put
a nurse
pressure.
did that?
You're gonna be fine. We're gonna get help, you know, and that calms them down because they
Yeah.
they
We're all
think I
good.
know what I'm
Bedside
talking
manner.
about.
Yeah.
And your kids know, your kids think you know what you're talking about. So kind of got to stay in character.
Oh, my 12-year-old. My 13-year-old is not.
She gives me parenting advice all the time. She's like, Claire, we have to work on your discipline skill set. I'm like, you're right, Ellie. Go to your room. Did that work?
Think
No.
about it.
I accidentally called her a dick about 2 weeks ago. I actually didn't accidentally. I was very intentional. We were having. I mean, this is that teenager, and everybody told me she's an amazing girl, and she's always been such a sweet angel. I mean, and I mean that literally, just always super supportive, super together, super. Any situation she would help make better. And then she turned 12, and everybody told me about this about girls. They're the best when they're young. Boys are terrors, and Jasper is a terror. You know, like their instinct is to destroy stuff. You know, you think, okay, whoa, bro, whoa, don't hit me, don't hit your mom. You know, Ellie was not like that. You know, like, okay, buddy. So Ellie was perfect. She would sit there, she'd build blocks, and then Jasper's instinct is to smash them down. And then they're like, when girls turn 13, man, when they get the hormones going, they turn into a different sort of mean. You know, like a whole, like, you've never seen mean.
Yeah.
You know, I think we went to a dinner, and I was hanging out with a friend of mine. It's a very well-known restaurateur, celebrity kind of thing, and she was stoked on it, and she had a good. He looks really young for his age, and I go, man, we're walking out, I go, doesn't he look great for his age? I mean, he's 65 years old. And she goes, yeah, Dad, that's because he has better genetics than you do. And I go, I turned around, I go, you're such a dick.
But that's appropriate. And she probably appreciated
You know what
that.
the funny thing is? She was standing next to her, and she goes, oh, no.
I was horrified. I was like, we do not call names in this family or something like that. You're not supposed to.
And Elia, like, dead-eyed me. Elia, my daughter, dead-eyed me, and she's like, I was kind of being a dick.
Well, you have to get on their level sometimes when they turn
sometimes.
teenagers.
Right, yeah.
Or just let them know, hey, listen, I've been where you've been, and I can do it better than you.
Right.
So if you want to go there,
We want to go toe-to-toe and hit
Yeah.
the tat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
here are the rules.
Yeah, you're like, really nice. Bend, don't break. You know? Like, okay. Now the trampoline's coming your way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we talk about like the secret sauce, and you guys have kind of expressed to us the secret sauce is communication and talking to each other and laughter. I think it seems like that's a major point for you all. But something else that we like to ask is, when you got married, did you say the traditional vows, or did you guys make up your vows? And if so, what would you change about those vows now?
Now looking back, yeah.
Oh,
Great
that is a great question. I'd have to take a moment to process that. But no, we did not do traditional vows. I think I had a common lyric in mind. You know, doesn't take a whole day to recognize sunshine.
We definitely wrote our own vows. You wrote them the morning of, and I think you ad-libbed half of them during. What? No, I'm just kidding. But it was.
Well, she's spot on.
We had. My older brother was our officiant, so he put together a really nice kind of very us. We got married in OB on the cliffs, and. My siblings were my bridal party, so they all walked down the aisle to a classical rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody, which was our favorite song as kids growing up. And then Troy had his dad and his best friend and a couple of his other close friends there, and it was my brother kind of giving a sermon, and then two friends of ours each reading a song lyric or a poem, and then we did our own vows. Mine was, I'm trying to remember. Bird. Remember? My brother was like, all the stoners in the audience are kind of like, mind's blown right now because I use some sort of like it feels like we've always been together. And I use some sort of like metaphor of like, I don't know if you were always that tree and I was always this. And I don't even smoke weed, but it was like written for the stoners.
Yeah. And then in mine, mine was just kind of an appreciation of her. I don't know why I loved her, but I promised to be there. And I think about changing him. I think for me, the only thing would be patience. Like there's sometimes like in like the business, I'm like, look, gotta go. Let's go. Let's do this. And she's such a visionary. She has such a she'll leap and she'll go and she'll do it, But there's certain times where I'm like, she also though needs a plan, and she's smart. She's like, look, you can't do that because you're gonna pull on that piece of yarn, and then everything, the sweater's gonna fall apart. All right, so I gotta have a plan. I'm like, do it tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Like so, that patience, like that. If you go back, I'm like, I promise to be a little bit more patient. No, that's really it. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's been. I'm not, I don't want to be Pollyanna about it, or it's just been. It's been great. I got the woman that I love the most in the world, and it's we've have each other's back. I mean, it's we've been through. We can go through what we've gone through, it has been insane. I mean, when Jasper was born, we took over this media company. I was working 20 hours a day. I mean, I was working until 1 a.m. Because I had to take over the business side. It was a full rebuild of this media company. We didn't know what we were getting into. She had to be a single mom. Going through
postpartum depression.
Thank you. Sorry, I just blanked.
There's one more thing to come.
So that's so postpartum. I know, right?
He's going through menopause first.
Yeah, I think I'm in it right now. But I mean, she literally was a single mom. And I was a single CEO of this company, and it was just insane. I have aged more in the last 3 years than I've aged in my entire life. I mean, I was always the one that looked the youngest in the room. Now it's kind of even out.
You don't look old.
But now it's kind of even out. And it's just, we can go through that, and I can count on my hand. The number of times where we've had kind of like that was kind of a fight. Like that was a real fight. We just like. Yeah, I think one of the best things for me is that she grew up with brothers. I think honestly, for a cisgendered, straight, hetero male dating a woman, the best, or married to a woman, the best thing you can possibly hope for is that woman had brothers.
That she knows how to conform to the patriarchy and fit into the style of argument that work best for you.
Or she's like, I get you're kind of animal. You know what I mean? There's a very distinct animalness about men.
Let me
and she's
pull out
like,
the training whip.
All right, do your male thing, do your male thing, do your male thing. I'm not shocked by this. I've seen it before.
I think it's also less a male-female thing, but you don't marry somebody like Troy or sign up for a life if you want to change some piece of it. Yeah. You just don't. That's like, he was very much his own flavor, and the way that he lived and functioned in life was not a formula. It was like, and there was a part of me that was terrified by that. It was
entropy.
But it was chaos, and to a certain extent it still is, where it's like, and that's the magic. So if you want the chaos and you want the magic, you don't have to choose, but you can't have the magic without the chaos.
And she never tried to change me. And that was,
what I'm saying. That's what I mean.
Well,
is that it was like
that saying, who you married,
comes
from, and that could be taken in so many contexts. Right.
And it wasn't like when we get married, you're gonna settle down and now take a job as like a banker or whatever people do besides food writing.
Where are the money?
Where's
the money?
Just maybe a bit more consistent. And I wasn't like, you're gonna, we're gonna have 2 kids and raise our kids in this neighborhood, and we just kind of hit I think that like wall of reality really early, where I was like, I don't even care if we don't have kids. I just want to live a life with you, and we'll make it interesting. And I'm not going to try to make you into someone you're not. And because the age difference was like, and now this kind of allows me to figure out who I am in a much more, I don't know,
colorful way.
Colorful way, yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys actually do that with your social media posts. I love the way you speak and how you're just like in it, and you bring so much life to what's going on around you, and that's very important. And what you guys do in lieu of color is with the magazine, by presenting San Diego in this amazing light. And I'm talking about the light as the sun is shining in. It's just so amazing. Yeah. So Love what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
And we love your love. I like hearing this story.
And you guys do that too. You go to the heart of where people's
Mm-hmm.
stories come from.
Right.
But we saw the opportunity to get to the heart of your marriage and show other people where you guys are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you so much. We are swingers.
Okay.
Sorry,
well,
I'm just kidding.
That is not true. That is not true.
I don't
Pink
see you having time
flamingos.
for that.
I had to tie it back. I had to tie it back to the beginning.
That is right. Storytelling.
I think that we're so excited to talk to you guys because honestly, the whole reason we did this is because we love where we live. We love community. We love meeting interesting people who are as equally passionate about where they live. And so sharing stories is a great way to grow
And
community.
seeing motivated people, like you guys are storytellers. You know, you guys are you want to get to know the community. You want to build a community. You want to tell the stories of and so we usually are the ones telling other people's stories. And it's kind of awkward and weird for me to be telling my own. Actually, that's not true. Claire's like, you
That's
talk
the
about it.
biggest portion. I feel so strange talking about myself.
Well, speaking of building communities, we do have to remind everyone that, we've been working on a Juneteenth celebration in San
Okay.
Marcos.
First
and it'll
one.
be the inaugural celebration for Juneteenth.
Nice.
There's been the go-to kind of in the area has been the Cooper family in San Diego and Oceanside NAACP does one in Oceanside every year. They've been doing it for 50 years, and it's great, but
There can be 6 or 7 or 20.
right? Nobody, holds the ownership of the celebration.
Yeah.
And because it's a federal holiday,
Yep.
people are off of work, and a lot of people we found don't know why. And so when that first happened the next year, just really quick, we threw an impromptu celebration in our driveway, and we live in a very suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we invited the neighborhood, and we were like, hey, let's educate everybody. So we pulled some sofas out, and we got books, and we wrote things, and we decorated, and we had food that was very
Nice.
cultural.
Created this
And
living library.
Yeah, and so
That's awesome.
we invited the mayor.
Okay.
And we said, hey, we think you probably should, come over and check this out because the city doesn't do anything to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I'll show up, whatever, She showed up. She stayed for quite a while, and we enjoyed having that conversation with her. And then next year, he received the proclamation for San Marcos for Juneteenth. So then we felt, oh my gosh, now we really need to do something, right?
Okay. So now you got a project.
So now we have a huge project.
Yeah.
We're actually going to have it at Cal State San Marcos.
Okay.
And we are signing up for a lot. We've never done this
This is
before.
blown up, right? Tell everybody what you texted me the other day.
Oh my gosh. So we have never done anything like this. We've done events,
Right.
like we've thrown fundraisers for a nonprofit, Achievement in Motion, that we're on the board, and they're good friends of ours. We've done a lot of stuff in our house. Like we do
Yeah.
events all the time. We do crazy Halloween stuff all the time every year for the neighborhood. But we have never done anything to this level. And I'm calling Claire, and I'm like, so, can I
Have
ask
you
a
heard of this
question?"
permit?
Well, no. What's great about Cal State is that they do all of that. So
Fantastic.
the
Okay.
police, the fire, the security, the trash, like all that, right? They have that on lock.
Amazing.
But how do I charge vendors? How do I recruit entertainment? I don't know what I'm doing. I just really am passionate about it, and I don't have a job right now, so I have all this time. No, because we have a podcast and we do a lot with that. But I'm just like, we need to do this because I feel like we feel passionate about this, and it's not. It's because people don't know what it is.
Right.
I know.
And they're not teaching this in school, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I asked my children, like, where did you learn about Juneteenth? Oh, when you told me. I'm like, oh,
Well,
okay.
TikTok.
and that's really true because we when a few years ago when we were doing an article on Juneteenth and the origin of it and what it was and everything else, we talked to a few different people, and there was a few people in our Black community that did not actually know. And
Yeah,
I was like,
the rules, the reasons.
Okay, all right. Well, then we all need to be educated on why this is important.
Because it's American.
It's an American.
It's an American
holiday.
story. Yeah.
Very
Yes.
important American
Yes.
date.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's kind of like how we see 4th of July.
Right.
Exactly.
Everyone
Yeah.
celebrates that. And I know it was a long time ago. And yes, there's a lot of history that makes this country where it is right now because of that. But it's also just as big for us, and for everyone else should say, yes, this is a day that we should celebrate that this ended. And
Massive.
it is
Yeah.
it's huge, right? So I also think there's a misinterpretation from people that are not of color that is a black holiday where black people celebrate.
Right. No,
And
this
that
is
it's
where
not an inclusive holiday.
Yep.
And that's why we're doing this, because
Yeah.
we want to change that. And we want people to feel included. We want people to share in the celebration. We want people to understand. And we're leading with education. And we're leading with, just that whole kind of, we have a whole nother generation right now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
And
this is when that was the marker of when we unassled ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, just so crass about this, but it was kind of like when I came to terms with my mom. You have a history of bigotry in the past. That was
Right.
my mom. That's a whole country's reckoning. It's a whole country's evolution moment.
Right.
Growing up moment. Like, hey, okay, this is not okay. We're start healing right now.
Nobody
we're
knows
healing.
about it.
And our kids,
Not that
though,
nobody knows about it, but it's not.
No, people don't know about it, and it's the kids that are growing up right now. They're in this generation of you don't even have to explain to them what gay is, because they're like whatever.
Yeah.
We know we have
They're
friends
we are
why is it such a
17
big
layers
deal?
beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that there's kids who are also kind of laissez-faire about history and some of the things that are happening right now. So anyway, we're working on that.
That's awesome. And so what are the
Give us the
details of that?
logistics.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
tell everybody.
first, let me say
Okay.
this: you guys were our inspiration for how we want to set it up.
Yeah.
So we've gone to Juneteenth celebrations, which are absolutely great, but like Natalie said, it seems like it's just for black people. It's not for the entire community. And we were inspired by the Del Mar Wine and Food Festival.
Gotcha.
Well, how things was so set up, and it was so nice, and everybody was there.
Yeah, we're trying to
And that's what we
recruit,
want to do.
Well, I'm
know,
glad that we can be an
that's-
inspiration. That's amazing. That's an honor. But
Yeah.
and that's
we're copying you
please, copy away
without the
Okay.
budget.
I'll tell you which parts not to copy.
But we are showcasing black businesses and
Awesome.
excellence. We're talking to Chef Kelston over at Fox Point,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
that are doing things here that people just. I feel like some people just don't know about
Yep.
it, and it's very exciting.
Yes, it
it
is.
will be at Cal State San Marcos, June 19th on a Thursday, but people should be off work. Some of them. It'll be at 3:00 in the afternoon till
Okay.
8:00 in the evening, and that address is 333, which is a whole nother story. Twin Oaks Valley Road in San Marcos, California. And we're going to have talent. We're going to have speakers.
Wait a minute, you gonna sing?
Oh, that's free entertainment.
You should do a live recording of the podcast there too.
Well, we thought
You know
about
what? That
that,
would be
but
good.
we might be having to do a lot of logistical things that
Yeah,
day.
a lot of
Very
running
true.
around.
But our
Although-
film hub will be there.
Although breaking out this and doing what the definition of it is, to your point that educating people exactly what
Yeah.
it is. If you had this and you're like, we're gonna run through a definition right here, I have a conversation about it really quickly and make that short and sweet, so it's people at a party, they just want to get to the
Yeah.
the beverage cart. Sometimes
Well, we can't do the beverage cart yet.
Okay.
Unless
okay,
we get $20,000 more than we're asking for.
okay. Well, they would like to get the pizzas as well. You want to but we're always struggling with it. And when you do something like that in a community, enough, just the right amount of message, and then community.
Yes.
Then be around and make your own message,
Yeah.
around that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So but this is hard. I'm a nurse, okay? I don't
this
email.
is why I love you guys so much, though, that you're like, well, we're just gonna do it.
Yes.
And then
That's what
you're
we
like,
said.
okay,
You guys
so
are
it's
Claire. I'm like, I don't know if we should do that.
Well, I said a lot of that too. But I needed some motivation, and thank God Black History Month had the most amazing, marketing for businesses and people and reminders of our history. And it kind of motivated me to say, you know what, we have to do this because I mean, this, like I said, this could be a whole nother episode. My mother is white, white.
God.
And my father is very dark skinned. And I grew up mixed.
Yeah.
And my black experience is different than his black
Right.
experience.
Sure.
And so my education behind the black experience in my environment was like how I live right now.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by everything. There's nobody's special, nobody's culturally special. It's just very diverse. So being here, I'm surrounded by not a lot of brown people. I have to
Yeah.
go out and find them, and they're, mixed in, if you, and far in between. And I don't feel that desire or need to find those people. But I also have a little bit of change in my perception marrying him because I wasn't with a black man before.
Yeah.
So I have a different mirror on my identity.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so I might
And
be
a different part of your identity. Right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my upbringing was different than my experiences, and my experience with him is different than my late husband. You know, before I was an ambiguous family,
Right.
now I'm a black woman with a black man. You know, and so there's a lot that is kind of woken up in me.
That's kind of, I mean, it's kind of cool actually. You get to experience, you kind of access both sides of who you are.
Right,
you know,
in a
your
way
heritage.
that's like I have a direct kind of resource to the side that I.
Welcome to the part of the marriage you become a resource.
I'm all about it.
And I know that sounds crazy, and we had our first episode of our season 2, and what we talked about, just the two of us alone, was, you know, growing up with our different experiences, and I had a lot of experiences being mixed that wasn't good,
Sure.
and it was not coming from the white side; it was coming from the other side.
Got it.
And so, did you remember that movie School Days by Spike Lee?
I do remember the title. I don't.
It was
can't
kind of like a
remember now.
musical.
Okay.
Anyway, there was a light skin, good hair side of the girls, and then there was dark skin, more
Right.
nappy side of the
Yeah.
girls, and they had this little fight back and forth, and that movie just kind of like woke me up, like, oh my God, there's other people that are having these problems like me,
Yeah.
you know. So anyway, that's a long story. But circling back to Juneteenth, this has been something that we just kind of feel like, you know, we're the black people who are going to do this.
Heck yeah, you are. Heck yeah.
Nobody else is doing it, so.
Honestly, that's a great name for a company. We're the black people going to do this.
No, you know what?
know?
With our nonprofit, we say we did that shit productions.
That's amazing.
We're getting T-shirts because
Well, and you guys have what I think is really special is that you're open, willing, ready, and eager to talk about your experiences and to talk about them with us. And sure, you wanted to know about our story through the frame of the podcast, but it's also you're just curious about other people and their experiences, and you're learning about yourselves and your own different dynamics. And
I think it's the only way you learn about yourself, honestly, is through the lens of other.
And that makes you a leader. That makes you inherently, even if you don't mean to, is making you a community leader. You're like, gather here, you know, come to my driveway. We're gonna put up some sofas. The food will be good. The music will be good. And if you happen to learn something, that's great.
exactly.
And this year, Natalie was like, "Say, how much do you guys charge for vendors?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends. Like, I would think about the amount of people that are there and what's happening and how many people are you thinking?" She's like, 2,000. I'm like, "Oh, Jesus, Natalie, who's running this?" Oh my God.
You know, it's free, so whoever shows up. But her quotes were in the 4 digits, and I was like, oh, I don't think we can do that. Nobody knows who we are. They're not going to be anxious to come there if we tell them some crazy 4-digit numbers. We don't have the marketing like you guys do. So, you know, everybody's like, what's in it for me? He says it's called the Whiffum mentality. What's in it for me?
Of course,
You know,
yes.
so am I going to get my name out there? Well, of course. We're going to do our best to get your name out there. But it's inaugural.
Yeah.
And so are we with event planning. It's inaugural.
and lean hard into the cause. At that point, you'll find those people that are like, heck yeah. I mean, Bad Boys of Culinary, you know, and Kelson and those kinds of people that are like, absolutely. This is important to me. It's important. I mean, it should be important to and it's not just black community chefs. Obviously, you're going to find a lot of chefs who are like, no, this is really important for all of our community.
It's one day.
You know,
Come on, guys.
and they're like, look, we're all in for the cause in the beginning, you know. I mean, I feel like we all kind of do that. You know, when we were building this, you know, when we started, we couldn't pay people $200,000. We couldn't pay, you know, we're like, hey, look, this is what we can offer. We're trying to build something really cool. You'll be part of it. You know
See
what
the
I mean?
vision.
See the
Share
vision.
the vision with us.
Exactly. And as we grow, you will grow. And as long as you're honest about that part, that's it. You know?
And I think you guys are people that other people want to be around, that they'll trust that
We
you
try to be.
this.
Well, I'm coming to your house in Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, we are what you get what you get. This
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no changing unless, you know, the makeup and the hair it's gonna be crazy.
My hairline may go back a little bit more.
But this is who we are. Like people who know us, they know that sounds like something they would do.
Yeah, for
Totally.
sure.
You know, so if it wasn't for this guy and the support that we have in our relationship and the connection and the camaraderie and all of the the things we have, like I couldn't see doing this with anybody else.
No,
Like,
there's no way. I would never been
Yeah.
able to do this without her.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Like she makes me feel capable. Like I know, okay, we lived a life of service, me in the Marine Corps, her as a nurse, but she gives me the courage to say, you can do it. You can do more. Yes,
Yeah,
you can run for
exactly.
city council. Yes, you can do X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
Yes,
and
you
I
can.
will support you.
Yeah,
But maybe
remind
not
you
go
of
to
your
the city
worth.
council things
Yeah.
every time.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could be in the foxhole together, and not just put it all into war terminology. But I
Yeah.
mean, she's the fox.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be more of the hole.
I'm trying to follow that.
Yeah, I know. Like,
You know, fox, you're the cunning one. I'm just like into the abyss.
What y'all doing?
well,
What you doing?
well, this has been amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
We
Honestly,
thank you guys
genuinely enjoyed it.
so much for inviting us here.
Of course,
We wanted to do this interview in person.
we're
so
building
badly.
this building for you.
Oh well, hey,
Yeah.
free parking forever.
Yeah, forever. Ever. Free event space.
Well,
You guys, thank you so much for having us. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I
thank
really
you for
wanna do
having
this,
us.
yes, thank you for letting us have you here so that you could have us.
We
on
liked
your
you so much we
podcast.
did it a second time.
yeah, yeah. We're
Genuine.
gonna send you the original clip because there was some good stuff on it.
Yes.
Cool.
That would be awesome.
What a beautiful time. Thank you. Really,
Of course.
so appreciated and to
It-
be with this beautiful backdrop. Not just this beautiful backdrop, but this beautiful backdrop.
This beautiful backdrop.
She is the light that surrounds me. So she's always there.
And do you sing us out? Who sings us out?
Oh, no singing. I'm an MC.
He's an MC.
Oh, he's the MC. Okay, all right. I don't know. He's got 2 records on Spotify, just in case anybody wants to know. No.
Do some deep research. For you all out there, thank you for joining us. Couples Unfiltered. We love having you. Please continue to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. And go to the website, couplesunfiltered.com. Look at what we have going on for our Juneteenth celebration.
That's a really nice voice.
Thank you.
No, let me tell you, he literally will read to me if I can see it. And it's like I'm like a baby again. He reads me these boring books on like some kind of Black history or something. Well, it's a Black history book right now.
This book is it's a historical.
It's a Black history book. The type is very tiny, and he's reading, and I'm just like, he was just.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to have you just FaceTime me and be like, all right, fine.
Yes, go.
I'm ready.
And he's all, his voice is just like, what do you call it? It's like that. What is that radio? Yeah, smooth jazz. Yeah.
ASMR. I wonder if they call it butter medium. Butter. You guys are.
If we talk too much,
I know. Hopefully they can edit this.
Just a quick reminder, we are not licensed therapists, and everything we discuss here is based purely on our personal opinions and life experiences. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a future conversation. This podcast is brought to you in collaboration with A Different Day Radio Productions, a podcast network bringing radio to the modern age. It's recorded at the Film Hub in Vista, California, a creative, collaborative co-working environment. Thank you so much for tuning in.